This is Sarah, and I am here with Lisa White, and we call her the Joy Seeker. And I concur because I was on her podcast, and this is, I think, the third or fourth time we've connected, and it is just such a joyful experience. She's also the author of Bursting with Happiness. Hello, Lisa. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you, Sarah?
I am wonderful. Happy to be talking to you.
Right back at you.
Awesome. Now tell us about your podcast. I was on your podcast, right?
Yes, you were. So my podcast is called Bursting with Happiness. It's the same title as my book, and it's really all about reminding and inspiring people to find more joy in life. You know, despite our challenges, despite our struggles, despite the condition of the world, sometimes there's always joy to be found if we know where to look. And every once in a while, I do include guests on my show, such as yourself, who have unique strategies for finding joy, a unique perspective that maybe I hadn't thought of, because as much as I am known as the joy seeker, I recognize that just because my strategies work for me doesn't mean they're going to work for everybody. So I want to share as many perspectives as possible to help people feel more joyful and happier than they ever thought possible.
And it's always the people I trust personally who I know are still learning. Because if any of us start saying, well, good, I've got everything figured out and I don't have to learn anymore. Danger, danger, danger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, quick tip, nobody's got it all figured out. Even though people may think that they do, yeah, we don't.
That's a conversation I have with my wondrous women all the time. And I'm always just searching through my own life and coding through my own life of like, okay, where's another blind spot? Where's another blind spot? Our brains build those blind spots, right?
They really do.
Oh, yeah, we got to watch out for them. So what are some of your favorite tips for living a joyful life?
Yeah, so many. You know, I guess we could start with that one. You know, the idea that we always think that everybody's got it figured out, that they are living a joyful life because they have no challenges, no stress, no problems. Personally, I didn't realize that this was so prominent until COVID hit. Pre-COVID, nobody knew that I struggle with anxiety, OCD, and a heck of a lot of fear. And why would they know that? That's never something that I would share with people other than my very close family and friends. When COVID started back in March of 2020, I became paralyzed with fear. I announced to my family, my husband, my kids, we were not going to be interacting with anybody, doing anything. There is no way we are going to set foot out of this house and interact with people in any capacity, because my obsessive worry about the health and safety was giving me the all or nothing mentality. Either we're 100% safe or we're 100% at risk. I had no ability to measure what thoughtful, intentional, responsible interacting and living could look like. It was an all or nothing thing. And when I would tell my friends and colleagues and people that I was interacting with, you know, I'm shutting myself down. We're not doing anything. They were struggling to see and understand why. Why are you so terrified? And finally, it occurred to me that I needed to be more transparent about my struggles, because up until that moment, people just saw me as this happy-go-lucky, successful, confident woman. And while I am all of those things, I also have these challenges that I live with, and I can be joyful despite them. And you could see the shock on my friends' faces, because they never realized that. They never thought that somebody could be happy living with such unique and significant challenges. But it reminded them that they can do the same thing. They can be joyful despite the challenges they have too. And it was empowering for me and empowering for them, that we all have something that we're struggling with, but that doesn't have to keep us from being happy.
I love reading about the dark nights of the soul. I think Mother Teresa talks about hers. Some other people have talked about their dark nights of the soul. And those are the people I trust more, right? If someone looks like they have it all figured out, or talks like they have it all figured out, or talks as if life is perfect, or looks as life is perfect, I just think, that's interesting. I wonder what's really going on, and not in a way that we all have to say what's wrong with us all the time and be super focused.
Totally.
That's inappropriate too. But there's certain wisdom that is learned from the dark as well as the light.
Absolutely. And nobody lives their life completely in the light. I mean, we just
Mhm.
can't. And when people hear me and they hear that I'm the joy seeker, they automatically assume I'm one of these airy fairy people who doesn't focus on the negative. Just look at the positive. Wee, rainbows, butterflies, unicorns. Yes, I do choose to look at the positive, but I'm not an idiot and I'm not going to live my life in the sand with my head in there. I recognize there are negative and bad things that happen or situations that occur, but there's a difference between acknowledging those and dwelling in them. And when
Mhm.
we start the dwelling piece is when we can go down that spiral of a day becomes a week, becomes a month, becomes a year, becomes a lifetime. And at some point, we have to say, all right, the situation was not great. It hurt. I'm feeling pain, but how am I going to move from this and past this to live the joyful, happy life I know I deserve? And that's the connection. That's the fork in the road that we have to be aware of. Nobody's going to tell you to ignore the bad stuff. It's just not possible. But don't dwell in it because you can get stuck there very easily. And if you can't get yourself out, reach out to somebody who can help you get out.
I think about the concept of not practicing sadness or putting a limit on practicing sadness.
Yes.
I think you and I talked the first time we met. My daughter had an unexpected day where I thought she was going to be at school and then she wasn't. And I practiced sadness that
Yeah.
day in a very intentional way because I really was frustrated. It really was felt a bit out of control situation. Not one of the major events in my life by any means, but it was very disruptive and there were emotions that came up with that. And not ignoring those, processing those, but not carrying those over into the next
Exactly.
day, into even that evening. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Acknowledge the suck. I mean, it stinks. You hate to see your kid sick, first of all. And second of all, there was a larger implication of what that meant. You had to go get her. And nobody's going to tell you not to feel that that really stinks, really does. But are you going to continue to reminisce and just harp on the stink of that? No. I mean, at some point, at the end of the day or whatever, okay, didn't get everything I wanted to get done today. It was a little bit of a situation where it was out of my control. Moving on, moving
Exactly.
on. And that's the key is just making a line in your mind that says, okay, we're gonna take a new approach tomorrow and see how it goes. But I love
Mhm.
that example. Another joy tip that I'd love to share with my listeners and my clients and that I talk about in my book is the burst of joy concept. Now, the
Mhm.
bursts of joy, I believe, make a huge difference in how happy we are. So often we focus on the big things in life. I'll be happy when I get that promotion, or I'll be completely satisfied when I get married, or yeah, great. Those things are magical and absolutely are going to bring you joy. But those things may not happen for months or a year or 5 years, or if at all. So, what can we do in the interim to
Mhm.
be joyful, to feel happiness? And I coined the term bursts of joy because it really is all about the little things. It's about those little things that we can implement in our lives on a daily basis. It's about being intentional, having control, especially when there's so little we can control sometimes, especially when it feels that way. So, a burst of joy can be anything that makes you smile, that takes your mind off things, that makes your mind relax, that makes you chuckle. It can be an episode of Seinfeld. It can be an episode of Friends. It can be a walk. It can be a run. It can be a bubble bath. It can be working on a puzzle. It can be anything that when you think about doing it, you get excited, even a little bit. And so the burst of joy is important because even if you know that listening to music makes you happy, you know that you love the band Pearl Jam, or you have a thing for Janet Jackson from the 90s. If you don't intentionally listen to that music, it doesn't matter that you know it. It matters if you do it. And so intentionally taking 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever a day, even if it's driving home from work, instead of, listening to the news or a podcast every once in a while, turn on a song that you know is going to make you groove a little bit Do it. It's being intentional because that's going to put you in the mindset of joy, whether you realize it or not. You just have to do it.
When I was going through my life coaching certification, they talked about a soundtrack of awesomeness and creating this soundtrack of awesomeness, which is exactly the music piece that you're talking about.
Yep.
It is one of the quickest and easiest fixes, and it's one of my most neglected
Mm,
things that I do. And I sometimes, not recently, but in my past, I would think, I don't really want to feel better. And that's going to make me feel better. And I don't want to feel better right now. I mean, I was probably that immature about it or babyish or just stuck in that cycle, that stage in my life, if I'm being honest about it.
sure.
And then other times, it's worked beautifully. I used to start out each morning writing my gratitude list, and I would listen to I Feel Good. Da, na, 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 and I knew
Love
I,
it.
right? 2.5 minutes. Talk about a super start to your day, right? It's like a
Yep.
superfood. It's a super exercise that worked, and it's one of the easiest things, simple, free, and kind of one of the things that I put off in my own life for some reason still.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a matter of being intentional and saying, you know what? Even if I don't want to feel good right now, I'm still going to listen to this song and gosh darn it, we'll see what it does. And, whether you realize it or not, you're going to be tapping your toe because it's going to bring you joy. So, as you mentioned, the things that bring you joy, it's also important to think about things that never brought you joy before, but might do it now. Because so often we get so stuck in who we are. I've never, liked camping, and there's no way I'm going to like it now. Well, maybe, maybe not. And the prime example of this for me personally is football. Hated football. Never watched a game in my whole entire life until about 10 years ago. I was at a friend's house and they had a party. We were all eating, whatever. And I see a football game on in the corner of the room. And I just kind of moseyed over and sat down on the couch. And I started realizing that it's pretty cool. I mean, first of all, the energy in the group, that the people watching, the community, I mean, that was pretty fun. People high-fiving and, oh man, can you believe that? And I started asking the questions. Well, what does it mean when the other guy gets the ball? I'm one of those people because I'd never really watched before. And I kind of felt a little something in my gut that was intrigue. So I thought, let me test this out. The next weekend, I was at home, turned on a game just to see, just to check. Holy crap, I loved it. Holy smokes, I loved it. I loved the energy. I loved when the fans were there in the field and at the stadium, and the players, would do their little touchdown dance and then bounce up to the stadium and high five a fan, and I loved the strategy. And when I saw this guy intercept a ball and then run it over to his own side for a touchdown, that's pretty darn cool stuff. 10 years later, I've never missed a Denver Bronco game, on the TV, obviously. Although lately being a Bronco fan is very difficult, but we won't go there. But the point is, if I hadn't been intrigued about that feeling I had, I would have missed out on a heck of a lot of fun. And that's the whole point of a burst of joy. It's silly, it's mindless, but when I know that there's a Bronco game on a Monday morning when I wake up, or Thursday or Sunday, heck if that doesn't give me a little extra pep in my step. And that's what a burst of joy is all about. A client I was working with, she had an opportunity to go skiing with a free lift ticket. I live in Denver, and she was going to turn it down because she hated skiing. And I pushed her a little bit. Well, tell me more. When was the last time you went skiing? 12. I was 12 years old. I hated it. It was hard. I was cold. I couldn't wait to get home. Fair enough. Are you the same person you were when you were 12? Well, Lisa, what a silly question. Of course not. What would be the worst thing, assuming you don't break a bone? What's the worst thing that could happen? You have this free opportunity. You go, you do a couple of runs. You say, it's not for me. You drink a little beer in the cabin or whatever they call it, and you move on with your life. But at least you know. Now, you know how the story's going to go, Sarah, right? She went and she loved it. And what she loved about it is the fact that she got up there off of the ski lift and was going down the mountain, and the
Mm.
beauty, the breathtaking mountains, the snow, the trees, the quiet, the serenity, something that she could never have appreciated when she was 12. Now she can't get enough of it. And I get goosebumps just thinking about it, because sometimes we have to be intentional about trying new things, new foods, new experiences. Because if you assume you're the same person you've always been, you could be right, but you could also be wrong. And that would be a pretty sad thing, to miss out on some pretty cool opportunities.
Why do you think we are so afraid of play and adding play in our lives? Some people are good at it and some people are, I'm not good at it. I am not good at it.
Yeah. Uh, You're right. Some people are great at it. Some people feel like it's a waste of time. Some people feel like that's not what grown-ups should be doing. I mean, I'm a responsible adult. Why on earth would I need to take the time to play? I've got to work. I've got a family. I've got responsibility. I've got to adult. And it's so sad, because whatever play looks like to you, play could be skiing, play could be reading, play could be meditating, yoga, whatever it is. It's all about doing things that make you the happiest you. And the irony is, when you're the happiest you, everybody around you benefits. You're a better mom, dad, spouse, partner, colleague, human, because you radiate that energy to the people around you. So it's almost selfish to not try to be the happiest version of you.
I agree with that completely. And I always make a joke that I've never talked to someone and they said, my mother was so well adjusted, rested, emotionally healthy, confident, happy with herself, happy with her choices. She just really ruined my life from, all that stability. Like, no one ever says that. But then as mothers, often we can get caught up in, well, if I do anything for myself to create that stable, emotional, healthy, rested version of myself, I'm doing something wrong. I'm selfish.
Right.
And I
Right.
just never heard a kid be unhappy that their mother was emotionally stable, well rested, and knew how to take care of herself.
Yeah.
I've never heard of a child complain about that.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. So it's just one of those things that, even if it feels wrong to be doing it, we need to remember that, no, it may feel wrong, but it's so right. It's so right.
It feels wrong for me to order a salad at lunch when I'm used to getting a burger.
There you go.
If we've been doing the same thing, it's going to feel weird to do something else. Maybe
Definitely.
it's not drinking when your friends go out. You're
Mhm.
used to drinking. And then, but I don't know that many people who are going to say, yeah, maybe you should drink more would make you, it's a good health choice. I mean, it's just because it's a habit that we've already
Right.
done doesn't mean it's not in our best interest to do something else.
Right. Right. And some people are afraid to change because of how it will look to others. I
Mhm.
mean, if you're a drinker and then all of a sudden you decide you don't want to drink anymore for whatever reason, or maybe you want to take a break, dry January, whatever, there is some pressure, I think. And so it's just a matter of feeling confident and comfortable in who you are, in what you want, to say, I'm
Mhm.
good. And
Mhm.
if people have a problem or make you feel bad about whatever that decision you have is, that's their problem.
Mhm.
You can't fix other people's problems sometimes.
Anytime. I don't think you can fix any
Anytime.
problems anytime.
I
So
agree.
talk about living in the present moment. There's a lot of conversation around mindfulness, living in the present moment in
Yes.
regards to joy. How does that show up in your work?
So hard. I mean, I think if we could all figure out what the secret sauce is to living in the moment, we would all be a lot happier, because how often are we spending time ruminating about the past and having anxiety about the future? And the past is the past, and we learn from it.
Mhm.
We grow from those experiences. We take the lessons that we can, and apply them to do better in the future. I mean, we've all got moments that we're not proud of. I mean, there are certain things that you just rehash and rehash, but at the end of the day, that's just sucking joy right out of you. It is a joy robber. It's not worth doing. And so when we mention and we feel ourselves doing it, it's a hard stop. I've learned my lesson. I know what I was supposed to, how I'm supposed to grow from that experience. I'm putting it in a box and locking it away. Now, the anxiety about the future is where I struggle the most, because people with OCD or fearful thinking and are just anxious in general are always worried about the future, the what if, the if
Mhm.
I don't do whatever I can to prevent the bad thing from happening, I can't be comfortable. I can't relax, whatever that is, whether it's washing my hands, whether it's checking that the oven is off, the door's locked, whatever it is, if I don't perform that quote compulsion to know that everything's okay, I'm not comfortable. And
Mhm.
that's kind of where my OCD has come from. I mean, when COVID first started, my hands were bleeding because if you tell somebody who washes their hands too much already to wash them more, it's not pretty. And so quickly after locking the family down for 3 months, I realized I need help. I needed help. My kids were 12 and 8 at the time. And being that isolated was starting to impact them. I mean, obviously the sadness from being completely isolated, but I noticed that they were struggling and not even really reaching out for virtual visits with their friends anymore. So I knew I had to get a grip and find a way to live a little more with them, for them, rather than just existing. And
Mm.
got the help that I needed some new perspective, needed the reminder that just because there is this thing out there that's real that could harm us or your family, it doesn't mean there aren't relatively safe activities we can do. So, we started doing bike rides and outdoor play dates, maintaining distance, wearing masks. You do what you have to do. And was I always comfortable? Absolutely not. But I did it because I knew that my kids needed it for their
Mhm.
well. And something that my doctor told me that is something I'll remember forever. She said, don't borrow trouble. So basically, she's saying, you can have anxiety about the future. If, oh gosh, if they get sick, or if there's an accident, or if something goes sideways and what will I do? What will I do? And I can start getting very anxious about that what if scenario. Just talking to you, I can get myself kind of worked up like, oh dear God, well, the first thing I would have to do is this, and then this, and then this. Her point is, you know what? You make the best choices you have right now. You make the best decisions, but don't borrow trouble. You don't know if that thing is going to happen. And you obsessing about it right now, all it's doing is creating stress, misery, and making you pretty unhappy. So make the best choices you can right now and know that if that thing, whatever it is, happens, you will get through that because you've gotten through all these other things in your life previously that were hard and challenging and scary. But you did that, just like you'll get through that if you're faced with it. And that's given me a lot of comfort because she's totally right. Rather than wasting our time worrying about the what ifs in the future, let's just do what we can and say, if that happens, I'll deal with it and deal with
Mhm.
it then.
That's certainly my strategy. I think about the three doors: worst case scenario, best case scenario, something in the middle, and kind of having a plan for those three doors. Now, not 300,
Right.
right? We don't get 300 doors. We get three plans, but most likely there's going to be some components
Mm-hmm.
things. And in my own life, when there has been a worst case scenario, knowing I already have a plan for that worst case scenario, but then not allowing myself 15 worst case scenarios has proven really helpful for me.
Yes. Yes. And knowing that that plan doesn't have to be flushed out. I mean,
Mhm.
you want to know the bullet points. Okay, boom, boom, boom. But as far as okay, so she'll say this, and then I've got to do that, and then I've got to go. Then
There's no
down that
way.
rabbit hole. And that's
Yeah.
where the anxiety starts. So I just
Yeah.
try to just feel confident. And one thing that really helps too is to think back to something difficult that you've accomplished before. Something that you're like, how did I get through it? I didn't think I would, but you did. And
Mhm.
so use that reminder as strength to propel you when you're faced with another really hard situation. We're stronger than we think we are.
Love it. So, do you have any personal joy favorites that you work into your day?
One of the things that I strongly encourage people to do is double down whenever you can on your burst of joy. Whether that means you enjoy singing, what would it look like post-COVID to, I don't know, join your church choir or see if your community theater is holding auditions? Take it to the next level. I double dog dare you in a good way. Double down. For me, I am a huge Barry Manilow fan. I love him more than anything. I don't know why. I just think that he's scrumptious and he sounds beautiful. And when he sings to me. I've been to 12 plus concerts. I mean, I've got a little bit of a problem. It occurred to me that, you know what? I could join his official fan club and become a fanalo. That's right, Sarah.
Nice. I mean, I feel
Fanalo.
like, you should have put this on your bio. I mean,
I
how
really
do I
should.
know about this? Yes.
So for $10 a year,
Mhm.
I am an official fanalo. I get an email every month from Barry. I have the opportunity to buy really cool Barry swag. I know all about his concert schedule. It's silly, it's ridiculous, but it makes me happy. And so that is something that brings me a ton of joy. And it's silly. And I did not always feel comfortable sharing my Barry love with people. But when I started talking about my other feelings and challenges and just who I am, I own it. And it actually makes people feel more comfortable to share their silly things. One gal told me she's a big fan of Nickelback, and there's a whole stigma against being a fan of Nickelback. I'm like, you do you, girl. You do you. And it's freeing because everybody's got, again, something that they love that maybe not everybody does. So whatever it is for you, double down if you can. Maybe sign up for a 5K if you're a runner and you're like, I don't know. Why not? Why not?
I'm trying to think what it's going to be in my life.
I know. Think about it. Think
Hmm.
about it.
Yeah, probably I need to go skiing again. I went skiing in Colorado. And then before I had kids, I was actually a very good skier. When people assume I'm like athletic and I'm not.
Yeah.
When there's like a ball coming towards my face, I'm not very athletic. But when it's me controlling my body, because I do a lot of yoga and, so my balance, that type of stuff is actually quite athletic. So I'd probably be even a better skier now after 10 years of yoga, or how long has it been? Like, it's probably been 12 years now, of yoga and whatnot and balance training versus that skiing. So I'm going to commit this winter. I'm going skiing.
Give it a shot. Give it a try. You never know.
Yeah, I know I love it. And it was great then. It's kind of, skiing is not the easiest thing to do with young children. So it's kind of a season that has passed, but it can absolutely be resurrected in my own way and joy. So, well, Lisa, tell people where they can find more out about you.
Yeah, so the best place is my website, thejoyseeker.com. You'll find all sorts of good stuff. You'll find a link to my podcast, my book, all my social media handles. There's a freebie on there, 5 habits that all happy people have. So subscribe and download that and see how many of them you already do. And maybe it'll give everybody a little bit of a sample of suggesting what they can also add to be even happier. So just remember, despite all of our struggles, all of our challenges, we can still be joyful, happy, and live our best lives.
I love it, Lisa. Thank you for helping us on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.
Love it. Thanks for having me.